Welcome back to Super Sunday Matchday ahead of the final day of the Premier League season. It's set to be an emotional one at Anfield for sure as Jurgen Klopp takes charge of his final game as Liverpool manager, and we can cross there live now and speak to Vinny O'Connor. Vinny, it will be emotional, won't it? What have they got planned for him today?
Yeah, it will be emotional, Vicky. Certainly the atmosphere walking up to the stadium and the amount of people who've said to me this morning that they're not ready to say goodbye to Jurgen Klopp today. Well, unfortunately for them, they obviously have to. And Anfield has been preparing, and I think if we pan across, we can see exactly what they've got in store for Jurgen Klopp, because Liverpool, of course, famous for their mosaics, and they have got one in tribute to Jurgen Klopp. I think we got an idea of just what an impact and an indelible mark that he's left on this city in recent weeks with the mosaics that have been painted around town, his image everywhere. We saw this week as well some of the stories that people have had to tell about the impact that he's had on them. And we've seen the reaction, of course, from staff here at Anfield on social media when Jurgen Klopp was there before them as well, and having pictures taken with all of the trophies. So that mosaic will be held up. The fans will be asked to hold those cards up before kick-off today. Over on the far side, obviously, in the Sir Kenny Dalglish stand, you can see the words Jurgen. There seems to be a bit of an image of him getting ready to do that fist bump at the end of that as well. And then on the cup, the letters YNWA for You'll Never Walk Alone. And certainly when they hold that up, it just gives a very visual display of the affection, the esteem and the gratitude that they have for Jurgen Klopp as well. Of course, there is a match to play against Wolves, so that'll be very much in Jurgen Klopp's thoughts as he makes his way out, as well as the emotion. But then after today's game is the opportunity for a lap of honour, a traditional lap of honour. It's deserved for Liverpool this season as well, of course, after qualifying for the Champions League again and winning that League Cup. And then there will be a presentation to the backroom staff who are leaving, the players who are leaving as well, because we know that Thiago and Joel Matip, this will be a chance for them to say goodbye to Anfield today as well. And then an opportunity for Jurgen Klopp to address the fans as well and speak to them. And I imagine that's when the tears will start flowing today as well, particularly if Jurgen Klopp's programme notes are anything to go by. I could just give you a little snippet as to what he says in those programme notes. I'd imagine they were pretty difficult to write this week as well. He says, "Finally, to the supporters, I have only thanks and love. Everything that we have done has been because of you, with you and for you. I have referred many times to the banner on the Kop which says unity is strength, and I think this is a belief we have all lived up to. The important thing is that it continues so that my successor can have the same benefits of it as I've had. After Sunday, I will be a supporter too, so hopefully I can play my part in that. I have never walked alone. You will never walk alone. LFC will never walk alone." And he finishes with a bit of scouse where he says, "Thank you, love." He's had a way with words since he walked through the door. Looks like he's signing off in the same way as well.
Yeah, it certainly does. Thank you very much, Vinny. He's described it as the most intense week of his life. And he's not a very intense person. But and when I spoke to him a couple of weeks ago, I said off camera, actually, said, "Have you had a cry about this yet?" He said, no. That's my Klopp impression. But he will. There'll be emotion. And he'll let it all go today, won't he?
He will. It'll be one of those surreal, sad, historic moments when we see him take the mic at the end of the game. I'm sure there'll be tears. He said this week that the players had a little presentation for him. I think it was on Thursday. Virgil van Dijk made a speech. Jurgen said he couldn't speak at it. He felt too emotional then, and he said, "I've got to get it right on Sunday." He was also reminded in his press conference of something he said when he arrived, and he gave that incredible press conference about turning doubters into believers. But he also said that day that it's not what people think about you when you arrive somewhere, it's what they think about you when you leave. That's what's important to him. And when you consider that this is the third club that he's going to leave as a legend after a long and incredible stint, and in all of those three clubs he's been the one to say goodbye. Those clubs have wanted to keep him. They've wanted more Jurgen Klopp. And this will be the hardest goodbye of the lot.
Johnny, you think this could be the last goodbye, don't you, in club management?
It wouldn't surprise me if we don't see Jurgen Klopp as a manager again.
I got that feeling when he said it. It felt finite, certainly in terms of domestic. I'm not sure about the Germany job. I don't know.
I think the way he's feeling now, if you asked him right now, he would. And in fact, he did say again, he said to the Sunday newspapers, this might be it. Some people who've spoken to him recently think this might be it for him. He might feel differently, and Pep Guardiola, I know, thinks that give him a break, he'll be back. But he does things differently. He always has done. There's such a human being there that he doesn't necessarily make those pragmatic football, sport and cold-headed decisions. He'll go on his feeling. And I just think he has given so much to the job, and can only do it one way, which is 100%. Those programme notes, he will have written them himself.
Yes.
You know, this week he spent a lot of time, I think he did 5 or 6 interviews with fan media, and every single one of them, I've watched a few of them, every single one of them, he gives everything and he turns on the charm and he's fully there. If you think what he gives to the players, what he gives to the staff, and he's walking away because he, as he said at the time in January, there's nothing in the tank.
Yes.
And it wouldn't surprise me if that continues to be the case.
Yeah, there was a
That
peak.
media point is quite interesting, because I remember going to the Asia Trophy in Malaysia a few years back, and Liverpool were out there and they were in a 14 pre-season tournament, and he made time, the press officer, basically, that it was only about 4 of us who were covering it from the national newspapers, and we asked if we could have, you know, just the dailies, what we call it, where he just gives time just to the daily newspapers, and he agreed. But in order to get that time, the press officer said he's got 55 other media commitments. 55, and that we don't even think about that, because we just think about managers in relation to one press conference a week and the game, maybe one game, maybe 2 games, and that's it. But he gives that time to so many. And then you factor in the fan outlets as well, which some managers just don't do.
And you'll both recognise this, but when I think of interviewing Klopp, you ask him a question and there's always a pause.
Yes, he thinks about it.
And there's an intake of breath, isn't there? And it's because everything's off the cuff. It's not scripted.
Absolutely.
And he's determined to give you the answer that's in his gut, not some kind of PR.
What's the significance of that, John?
Well, it's the way he lives life, I think. He attempts to be authentic, he attempts to be genuine at all times. And he doesn't do sort of guff, he doesn't do PR. He just, he does himself, he does what's genuine to him. And I think that's why he's connected so much with people on Merseyside. It's the soul that he bears, it's the human being that he shows. One of the fan interviews that he did was with Red Men TV, and it was a terrific interview. And he picked out as pretty much his favourite Liverpool moment, Alisson scoring on the last day against West Brom to get 3rd place. And if you wind back, it's because that's the season after they've won the title. They have such a challenging season. There's so many injuries. The players are tired. At one point, they're 8th or 9th, and they have this incredible comeback. And in the last minute, it's the goalkeeper that goes up. And Alisson has lost his father a couple of months before. And Jurgen Klopp is very close to him, and they're both religious people. And when Alisson scores and he points to the sky, and Klopp said that's his favourite moment. And I think what he's reminded us all of is that sometimes it's about the journey. It's not necessarily about the cold, hard trophies. It's about the journey. That's what it's always been for him. And it's the human moments like that that are more special to him.
You'll see a lovely piece with Trent Alexander-Arnold later on in the show as well. It's a really nice interview, and he talks about his relationship with Klopp. There's a special moment in it, so watch for that. What are the papers saying? I suspect lots on
Absolutely,
today.
yes. I mean, there are oceans of words in the papers today, so it's been hard to pick out just 2. But you talked about the journey. Have a look at this from Richard Morgan on the Sky Sports website, because he talks all about the journey, and he goes from that moment when he arrived and everyone expected him to be very Jose Mourinho, talking about himself as a special one given what he'd done with Dortmund in Germany, defying the superior financial power and status of Bayern Munich. But he described himself as a normal one, the ordinary one, and turned out to be anything but ordinary. And there are so many things that he talks about, from his 8.5 years in charge, the 6th European Cup, the high-octane brand of football he played, the man management, the motivational and organisational skills as well. And he talked about not just the highs, but the lows as well. And those moments early on when he had to implore the Liverpool fans not to leave early at the end of games after they were beaten by Palace, November 2015. And he managed to harness the power that he had from the yellow wall with Dortmund to the Klopp. He transferred it over, and that's why it became so powerful under him over the past 8.5 years. He talks about the transformative signings, Richard does, of Alisson and Van Dijk. He talks about the heartbreak of getting to finals and losing in the Europa League final, the League Cup final, the Champions League final. So many touch points in a terrific piece by Richard Morgan's, well worth a read.
And I think mentioning those finals is very relevant, because there's been a debate, hasn't there, about he should have won more.
Yes.
Is he really that good? You know, he's won blah, 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 as many leagues as Claudio Ranieri, etc., etc. You know, he has got to 3 Champions League finals and been beaten by the greatest Champions League team around, who continue to be a machine, Real Madrid, in 2 of those. And he's pushed Manchester City. He's lost leagues by getting 97 points. You know, he's lost leagues on the last day of the season, in the last 10 minutes, against the greatest title-winning side that we've ever seen. So I think to say that, and he's done that with, you know, the net spend that's the smallest of the big 6 or whatever. So to kind of say that he should have won more, I mean, it just undervalues the journey. It is, it undervalues what he's done, and it boils, as I said earlier, it boils football down to cold statistics. And Jurgen Klopp shows that it's about more than that.
Yeah, I would agree with that.